Well, good afternoon, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Steve Sargenti, president of RSM Facility Solutions. I just want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. We hold these open forums every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the last five and a half weeks, and this happens to be our 20th one. There's a lot of you out there today, so it's great to see. There's been some people with us that I think have been at every one of them. So I appreciate the support there. And hopefully what we've talked about over the last month and a half or so has added some value out there and help us get through this time of being out of work or stores being closed. This is the whole change of life that we've had going on for some time now. This all came about several weeks ago with our management team trying to figure out a way how to help our clients figure things out, find out best practices that are going on. We've talked everything from the time this started, from store closings to security, board ups to cleanings, sanitizing, virus cleanings. Now we're starting to, we've been dealing with products, different services. But as every morning we meet, I get everybody here at 8 o'clock, unfortunately for them, to talk about new ideas. And last week we decided the one thing we haven't talked about has been the people. Myself, our clients, the people in the stores, our vendors who actually are out there, on the ground doing the work. What does this all mean for them? How have their lives changed? How's our business and the environment that we're going back to work in has changed? And even though we have all these subject matter experts to talk about the different services that we provide, I don't think any one of us are really equipped to help so many people get back into the workforce and deal with all the changes, either from working from home or working 6, 8, 10 feet apart from each other at work. So I was actually lucky enough to be introduced to Chris Furiolo, founder of Victory Road Leadership Development Group, last week. And we talked for a while, actually a good hour on Monday night and several times since. I've seen a couple of the webinars that they've had, him and his team. And I was really impressed with what he had to say and the connection he's made with people. So brought it to the team. We liked the idea. We thought it would help. I think it'll add a lot of value out there. Maybe help you guys manage your people as well. So we decided to have a 2-part series starting today and next week that Chris and Captain Tom Chaby will go over some of their experiences and thoughts and maybe some ideas of how to get through this time of uncertainty. So without further ado, Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you guys.
Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Rush. We're really excited to partner up with RSM Facility Solutions. For us, and I'll get into in a second what we do. Anytime we have an opportunity to really play a role and impact individuals, organizations, and help them, especially at a time of change, unfamiliar territory, time of uncertainty. We get really excited about that. It's right in our wheelhouse, and we're really passionate about providing that insight and messaging, and really kind of tangibles that are going to help you guys go back and not just in the work world, but at home with your families. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. A lot of people working at home. Our personal lives are kind of colliding with our work lives. And there's a lot to manage with the adversity that we're all facing and the change and the uncertainty. So at Victory Road Leadership Development Group, we've been around for about 7 years, really kind of built on 3 innovations. I say innovations, 3 kind of real strong pillars and standards that we feel strongly about. And that's leadership development, building team effectiveness, and we call performance optimization. And really our goal is with our clients it's really continuous improvement. And we're very fortunate, our team members at Victory Road, to work with some of the best high-performance organizations, teams, and companies in the world. We spend a lot of our time in the professional sports world / major college athletics world, a lot of time in our corporate world, with a lot of executive leadership teams and organizations that have big ground forces that are really trying to create and sustain a high performance culture. And then obviously, if some of our teammates spend a lot of time in the special operations community in the military. So there's a lot of experience with our teams when it comes to leadership in crisis, and really embracing adversity and what that means to embrace adversity, and how we can kind of turn that around and use that to our advantage to continue to execute at the highest level day in and day out without that distraction. That's really the end game here, because at some point the gates are going to open back up again, and hopefully it's going to get back to business as usual. There may be a new norm, but what can we do today, each and every day, to make sure that you guys are prepared, so when the gates do open up, you guys are out at the forefront, ready to go. And I think that's the most important thing, and that's our goal here. So we're going to kind of stick with the theme of thriving through uncertainty. And as I spoke to Steve and Rush, I really thought that my first teammate today, he's not only a teammate, he's a mentor, somebody that I look up to, and it's been with me for quite some time here now, 5 or 6 years. I think it's just his voice and his experience and being in a leadership role while facing adversity, and what that means to him, and the things that he's applied in his life, and the clients that he works with, and the clients we work with together at Victory Road, to help you guys have that skill set, that foundation, those layers to really persevere forward today, tomorrow. So you guys are really super prepared to be really successful when we get back to business as usual. It's a scary time for a lot of people, but and we'll get into it in a second here as I introduce them. But we really kind of have a choice here, and everything is a choice, and perception is reality, and what we do today and how we perceive things and how we embrace it is going to be really the telltale on where we're going to be when we all come out of this. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to, again, a friend, a teammate, a mentor. Please welcome Tom Chady.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Arsen, for having me today.
Tom, why don't we take a few seconds here, just maybe brief everybody just on your background. I know you're a local New Jersey guy. Not everybody on this call is from New Jersey, but it's a New Jersey-based company. Maybe just take a few seconds just to bring everybody up to speed, and then we'll get after it.
Yeah, fantastic. Grew up in North Jersey, Bergen County. Went to Park Ridge High School where I was a student athlete. Graduated, went on to college, continued playing football at Plymouth State University. Then transferred after my freshman year to University of Delaware, where I finished out my football career and got my degree. After that, I did a few different jobs, and then pretty quickly after school, I realized I wasn't happy with life and started reflecting on what really I wanted most, and that was to be part of a team. That's when I discovered the SEAL community. Went to the Navy recruiter. I was fortunate to get selected to go. Went through SEAL training, and once again, fortunate to make it through. Pretty difficult training. And then I was a SEAL for 26 years, where I had the privilege to lead teams as small as 4 men up to 400 plus around the world, 73 different countries. And just had the honor to lead some of America's finest. Since retiring from the military, I bring my experience, I'd like to think expertise to corporate America and to elite sports teams, where I help them optimize their performance and find team effectiveness. And that's what I do now.
Thanks, Tom. I think the first thing that we want to get into, and you and I do this every day, and we're constantly on these webinars with our clients. The word adversity comes up a lot, right? And the word adversity means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It triggers different emotions. With your experience, your background, everything you've done, 26 years as a SEAL officer, and what you're doing now and helping building organizations and high performance teams, that word adversity, what does it mean to you?
Adversity. We keep hearing it on the news every night. It's everywhere. It's what we're experiencing, COVID-19. For me, it has a very specific meaning, and I have to go back to 19 years ago. And all of us can remember precisely where we were on this day, a little shy of 19 years ago. And I was in Bogota, South America, working counter-drug operations. On this day, I was in a room, no windows, no televisions. And early in the morning, Admiral Moreno, a Colombian admiral, walked in the room with tears in his eyes. He walked over to me, extended his hand, and he said, "From a grateful nation, we mourn with you today." And I heard that, and that's how I found out about 9/11. couple days later, I'd be on a flight from Bogota, land in LaGuardia. And there I'd get picked up by a Navy plane. As we flew down the Hudson River, the Navy pilot tilted the plane a little bit to the left so we could look at the smoking remains. The smoking remains of the two buildings I looked at every day as a child. And in that very moment, I'm embarrassed to say what I felt. You know, the world said this was adversity. It would be defined as adversity, just like now. COVID-19 is adversity. All I could think in that very moment was opportunity. I knew I would be relevant. I knew I would be given the opportunity to do what I had been training to do for the past 12 years, to bring that to bear, to go to the battlefield. I'd be in Afghanistan a few weeks later, and to bring all those skill sets that this country invested to prepare me with, bring all of that to my team. Opportunity. When I hear adversity, I think opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great quote. It's a Walt Kelly quote that we talk about all the time, Tom. When facing adversity, we are confronted with insurmountable opportunities. And one of the things that you talk about a lot, and for many years, is the difference between looking at things as a threat compared to a challenge, and how looking at things as a threat can put us back on our heels. It impacts our performance. It impacts the way we think. It impacts the way we manifest, and deal with emotion. And just switching the mindset from threat to challenge, looking at something as a challenge, is an absolute game changer. So I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about, the difference between threat and challenge, and what that really means when it comes to individually being successful and being able to perform, and obviously as a cohesive unit, as a company, as a group.
Yeah, let me start that off with a saying that I frankly model my entire business off this. Perception is everything. Perception, how you perceive the situation you're in, how you perceive the situation you're about to enter. Perception is everything. Here we are, COVID-19 hit. It is what it is, and it's horrible, and thousands of Americans and thousands of citizens around the world are dying. And it's horrible, it's sad. We could perceive this situation as a threat right now, we could. And in some ways it is threatening, particularly if you have underlying health issues. But if you do that, I believe you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up to not respond to the opportunities that are in front of us. Now, I'm not suggesting by any means to take chances and do things against what the doctors are recommending, but I am suggesting look at this situation more as a challenge. How can I respond in the most effective way so I can embrace the situation and then hopefully grow, and then maybe make this situation my competitive advantage? So when you look at something as a threat, a series of things happen. We were about to get eaten by a grizzly bear, for example. Let's just say that's a situation we're about to walk into. I would say that's threatening. A big 8-foot tall grizzly bear that outweighs us threefold or more. You want to have those responses that happen to us as humans, and those responses are clear. When you're in a threatening situation, we fall back into what evolution has created, and we call it freeze, fight, or flight. The fight or flight mechanism. It's through evolution. It's evolved, and it's there to preserve life. When you go there, when you go into that fight or flight mode, you send a signal to your brain. And this is how we function. We function off how we think. We function off what we perceive. Grizzly bear about to eat us. Threatening. That's a good thing to think. It is threatening. When that threatening, that signal goes to our brain in turn becomes a signal that creates chemicals that flow through our body. In this case, it'll produce cortisol in heavier amounts. Our blood will flow to our arms and legs so we can fight or run away, flight. And that's all for self-preservation. That's great if you're about to get eaten by a grizzly bear. But what if you're in the middle of a situation that's a little bit more nuanced than that, like COVID-19? You don't quite want to go there. So you want to recontextualize your perception a little bit. And a lot of people just don't have disciplined thinking, and they go immediately into threat thinking, is what I call it. If you think challenge, I can succeed through this. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to get from point A to the other end of COVID-19, but I have the skill sets. I believe the doctors can help me. I know what I need to do. Then you're going to send a different signal to your brain, a challenge signal, and you're in turn going to produce a whole different set of chemicals, and we call this endocrinology, that flows through our blood. And these different set of chemicals will empower us. Testosterone in greater amounts, adrenaline in different amounts at different situations. And these different set of chemicals will empower us. You can see with better peripheral vision. You can breathe better. One key thing here is you can think with more clarity. You can be more creative, and study after study proves this. So if you think threatening thoughts, you're ultimately going to disempower yourself. You may set yourself up for success to get away from that grizzly bear, but not to persevere from an enduring situation that's going to last much, much longer than an engagement with a grizzly bear. It's going to last months in this case, where you want to really be able to optimize your performance.
There's a lot of pain points that we're all dealing with. And you know, it's some of it is, you know, obviously we have to take care of our clients, to continue to nurture and develop our relationships with our partners, and do that with confidence and while providing psychological safety and emotional safety for our clients, for our partners, as well as our families. But in return, a lot of us are facing our own personal fears. And a lot of times we can get, well, either get sidetracked or fall off the track. And I look at life as a train, right? The train's always going to go forward. Life's going forward. It's not going to turn around and go backwards. It always goes forward. And maybe the track may turn to the left a little bit. It may turn to the right a little bit. Our goal is to make sure we don't tilt too far to the left or right, fall off the track. There's a reason why in a fighter jet, there's only one window in front of you, right? Why in a car, the front windshield is bigger than the rear windshield. Yeah, you know, you have a saying in you're going to smile because I'm going to surprise this one, in the SEAL community: plan the dive and dive the plan. Right? Chris Howe, who's one of our teammates who served under your command, talks about that all the time. You talk a lot about, you know, we don't rise to the level of expectation. We fall back to our training. When sometimes we have these goals and objectives, and the light at the end of the tunnel, the end game, seems so far away. We don't know when it's going to happen. How do we maintain that discipline or that mental toughness that's required? A lot of people think mental toughness is the ability to do your job no matter how you feel. How do we stay on course with the goals and objectives we still have to strive to obtain, with the fear that we're facing, the uncertainty, having an obligation to somehow muster up enough confidence and to provide that psychological safety, emotional safety for our clients and our partners, and continue to develop those relationships. I know you talk a lot about one step at a time. You mentioned the journey of 1,000 miles, we give them one step. But I'd love to get your perspective on that, because I know it's something right now that a lot of folks that are associated with RSM, the fact of staying focused on the mission at hand without letting, fear take over. So, I again, love to get your insight and your perspective on that.
Yeah, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, the quote you just cited a second ago. That's exactly right. I went through SEAL training back in 1989, and I was fortunate that I really had no idea what I was getting into. It was before the movie, it was before all the books, and nobody really knew what a SEAL was. I didn't. I certainly didn't. I went to the recruiter. They showed me a 15-minute video. Looked interesting, found out a little bit more about it, and it seemed to fit my strengths and it really fit what I was looking for out of life. But I had no idea how difficult it was going to be. And when I figured that out early on, that, wow, this is a big challenge I signed up for, I was fortunate. I had a mentor, and they said, you need to take this one evolution at a time. And in the Navy, an evolution is an activity. Think school. You've got 8 classes in a day. One class is one evolution. So my mentor told me, think of this one evolution at a time. Don't think about eating the whole elephant at once. Just take one bite. We're going to do a run, a 2-mile run. It's a timed run. You need to run it in this time. You're going to have to wear boots. You're going to get wet before you do that. You're going to be sandy. It's going to be miserable. Just focus on that run. Hydrate, stretch, be ready psychologically. Boom, you're done. Move on to the next evolution. It might be a dive physics test. Make sure you had prepared for it the night before. Be ready, focus, do all the things you need to, and do that evolution after evolution after evolution after evolution after evolution for a year. Thousands of evolutions, one step at a time. And I try never to think about outcomes. I think when you focus too much on outcomes, you set yourself up for failure. When you're thinking about outcomes, and those outcomes might be in jeopardy of not happening, you will fall into threat thinking. It's a fact, you will. But if you just focus on the process, the journey, the evolutions, step by step, you set yourself up for success. It's more disciplined. It's harder. It's not as fun. It is so much more fun to think about, wow, I'm going to go through, I'm going to get through this training and be a SEAL a year from now. But that's not going to help you become a SEAL a year from now. Focusing on one thing at a time will help you. And this is what I work with organizations, corporate and sports teams. You know, young men and women, they focus so much on outcomes. It's just the nature of our culture. Focus on what you want to achieve. I want to go to Harvard. I want to go work for this consulting company. I want to become a millionaire. Whatever your outcomes are after, if you focus on those, you're setting yourself up to not achieve that. And I believe that 100%. So focus on the process.
You talk a lot about this being an unbelievable opportunity to nurture and develop even a deeper and stronger relationship with our partners and our clients. And you talk a lot about, you say, what we do today and how we make our clients feel is going to be what they're going to remember for a lifetime. They may not remember the very specific and detailed things we do. They're going to remember how they feel and how you've made them feel in a time of such great adversity as we're all facing right now, a time of unfamiliar territory, a time of uncertainty. I'd like to get your thoughts on that, because I know it's something you feel really strong about how much of an opportunity this really is, and for the folks at RSM Facility Solutions and the clients and partners, what that really means and why this is such a great opportunity to make sure that the people we work with, our partners and our clients, are going to remember us for that lifetime.
I love reading biographies and stories of American greatness. And the most compelling stories out there have elements of adversity every single time. Every single time there's something challenging that happened. Maybe you were born with some sort of disability. You were on a ship that was sinking. Or in my case, you were on a battlefield in Fallujah, dealing with an enemy that fiercely wanted to eliminate you. And those stories always revolve around somebody seeing through and past the challenge at hand. And I can remember when I was in Fallujah just a bit ago, commanding officer of Special Operations Task Force West, and things were pretty arduous. And we had a team of about 400 conducting operations every single night. And while there, I knew early on, and I was blessed with phenomenal mentors that really prepared me to be a more effective leader. And I was smart enough to listen to them, which I'm very proud of. And I knew this is my chance. This is my adversity. This is where I'll always be remembered. And there are teammates from that evolution, and Chris Howe is one of them. He's a great American hero. And I hope he feels this way. I think he does, that my leadership was effective. I was empathetic, but I was strong. And I did the right things by our team to set us up for success. Every one of our teammates came home alive. A couple got shot. It's to be expected on a battlefield, but they all came home alive. We had unbelievable success, metrics-wise, with the number of terrorists we eliminated from the battlefield. We did other things that were equally compelling, to include building stability in one of the most difficult regions of Iraq. But I knew, and I clearly know now, that I will be remembered for what I did during that simple, small 6-month period of my 26-year career. I'll be remembered more for that 6 months than the other 25 and a half years. So think about that. Here we are in COVID-19. Your people, they're going to remember you for how you treat them now. Your clients are going to remember you for how you treat them now. What an opportunity. The companies I work with, I challenge the leaders there, the C-suite, the key executives. I challenge them. Go above and beyond now. And I'm paying attention. Like I'm going to Jersey Mike's this weekend. I used to rebel at that place because anybody that hijacked the state of New Jersey's name for a sandwich shop, I was not going to go there. But I went and I liked it. And now I like what they stand for. 20% of their profits are going to help the needy in this challenge we're dealing with. That's taking advantage of this situation. And I encourage everybody who's listening today, do the same thing. Your people, your clients, everybody in your circle will remember what you do now forever.
I think there's a great quote I want to share with everybody that, Tom, it's one of my favorite quotes. I think it's right on point with what you're talking about right now. It's from Cheryl Strayed, best-selling author. She says, you don't have a right to the cards you think you should have been dealt. You have an obligation to play the heck out of the ones you're holding. I'll say it again. You don't have a right to the cards you think you should have been dealt. You have an obligation to play the heck out of the ones you're holding. I think that falls right in line with what you're saying here. I think what happens to, and it's something I want to really talk about with you because you're so passionate about it, is being relevant and feeling relevant and what that means. And there's so many people right now, and there may be folks that are some facility solutions or clients and partners that feel like, okay, hey, maybe we lost part of our ground force to layoffs. We're working from home. We can kind of slack a little bit. We don't have to still meet the standards that are expected from us and required. And maybe in essence, they feel they're not as relevant as they once were. And I'd like you to talk about why it's so important to maintain those standards, to keep striving to achieve the standards set right within the organization for the purpose of our clients and our own teammates and our organization, and why feeling relevant and being relevant is so empowering and so impactful. And a lot of people don't realize how relevant they can be.
Relevance, for me, it is the most important principle of leadership. I was talking about it this morning. The head coach of a football team, the CEO of a corporation, I'll refer to them as the curator of relevance. They own it. They cultivate it. They give people relevance. And, I look at relevance from a couple perspectives. The first one is this. Relevance is not this zero-sum gain concept where, like a bank account, you have $100,000 in it. You take $10,000 out, you're now down to $90,000. If you had 100,000 of however you measure relevance, if you have 100,000 of it, and then I give you, Chris, 10,000, does that mean I'm down to 90? Not necessarily. Perhaps we just created more value, and now we're up to 110,000. And I think that's the better way to look at it. I found late in my career that the more relevant I made people on my team, as the curator of relevance, once again, the more relevant I made others, the more relevant I became. It was crazy. It was almost biblical. The more relevant I made my teammates, I hate the word subordinate. I think it's one of the worst words in the English language. But the more I gave relevance to my teammates, the more relevant I became. And then when I learned that, man, did my teams prosper. Man, did we go through the roof with effectiveness. But then there's another side to that coin. I challenged my teammates. I challenged them. Chris, where can you be relevant for our team? Where can you bring relevance? I need you to think about it. What are you interested in? What's your why? How can you bring more value to our team so we can meet our objectives? And when I did that, and I truly listened and took advantage of those opportunities, boy, we went through the roof. Domination ensued.
Another thing that you talk about that's really important is buy-in. And as an organization, and even some of the clients that may be on here in their own organizations, the value of buy-in, and I'm hoping I'm going to get this right here, but high buy-in to a mediocre plan beats low buy-in to a great plan every single time. If you could just shed some insight on that, I think that's going to go a long way with the folks here. On the webinar, just understanding why buy-in is so much more important than even a fantastic plan.
Yeah. Having a great plan, we all want it. You want to have the best plan possible. That's the idea going into something. But I think it's more important to have 100% buy-in. Think about rowing a boat. You got 10 guys and gals rowing away. And, if some of them don't buy in, how effective are you going to be? Not very. You may be going off course. You're not going to go as fast. You're not going to have the same endurance. All these things are going to be working against you. It's the same with an organization or a team. Buy-in is everything. And this is another concept. And for me, the two primary tenets of my leadership style revolve around leadership and buy-in. And my mom was a gardener. We had this garden in our backyard. We ultimately got this little tiny 10 by 5 foot greenhouse where she could grow tomatoes or whatever she was growing out there. And she'd be out there every single day, weeding, trimming, pruning, all the things you need to do in a garden. And it's the same with buy-in. Buy-in is this concept, this element that impacts every team significantly, but it's dynamic. It is continually changing. You have teammates that are going to buy in at different levels and different times of their life. Their situation may change at home. It may be a different part of the year. It's now Christmas time, the holidays, whatever. And they've got different priorities. And you have to look at buy-in as this dynamic element that influences the success of your team. So here we are in COVID-19. And many, many people are working from home. Here we are Zooming right now. For you and I, this has been phenomenal because now we're getting to reach out and talk to more people and reach some of our partners in different ways where we can impact and help them grow. So it's been great for us. So our buy-in has been through the roof. But some industries don't have the same luxury that we do. So how are you going to keep that buy-in high? As a leader, I would keep my finger closely on that buy-in pulse and be careful to make sure you're keeping your teammates working towards the highest level buy-in possible.
Two more questions for you, Tom, and then we're going to turn over to a big Q&A. But if anybody does have any questions, you can, please feel free to jump on the chat box or the Q&A box and ask away. And Tom and I would be happy to address your questions before we turn it back over to Stephen Rush for some questions that they may have. Just some advice, because we have a lot of leaders on this call here. There's people that are part of the executive leadership team. There are people that are managing their own teams, clients that are managing their teams. Just some advice, for the leaders out there to help them dominate. And I love the word dominate with your teams through this COVID-19 crisis here.
Yeah, no, domination is one of my favorite words as well. And, it goes back to what we were talking about a second ago. Here we are, we're in a challenge, adversity. I think we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel now, which is great. I would encourage you, number one, adversity reveals reality. Your organizations have elements that are unbelievably effective. And then I'm sure you have elements in your organization that aren't quite as effective. Look at what's working right now. Ask yourself, reflect, why is that working for our organization right now? And then get really honest. What's not working? Why is that not working? And then look for those opportunities where you can take your business to the next level. You may need to wait until COVID-19 restrictions ease up, but I bet you're going to see some opportunities. And the industries that are going to grow in the next year out of this situation I'd love to come back a year from now and take a look at it, because there's going to be all sorts of new companies. Zoom is going to go through the roof, and they probably already are. But I would encourage you, really look internally and ask yourself those hard questions. And then go back to what I said a minute ago. Look at taking care of your people, taking care of your clients. How can you even do more? You know, I reached out to every single one of my partners, people I've worked with over the last few years, and I offered to do a talk on adversity for them. And I said, I'll do it for free. I just want to do that as a thank you to you for giving me business in the past, but I also want you to remember me. And if I could bring value to your organization in the future, please call on me. And I'd love to be that guy to help your organization get to the next level. And you and I share that. You know, we agree on that because it's the right thing to do, but it's also good for business, I believe. You know, just like Jersey Mike's, the founder, you see him on, at least I see him on TV, on the commercials. He's trying to do that to the best of his ability. So how can you dominate? Just look at what you were before this, then look at what you are now, and then try to adjust. There's a course adjustment that is going to take you in a new direction. It may just be 1 or 2 degree course direction, but something different is going to really be revealed now, and then pounce on it and get after it. And I guarantee you good things will come for it in the coming months.
Last question for you. Every single one of our teammates I've asked this question, and, you know, 3 things that the folks here at RSM and Facility Solutions and obviously the clients and partners can take away with them. You know, for example, Chris Howe has his 3T mentality, which is tireless pursuit of excellence, you know, trust with everyone you interact with, and, you know, team first mentality. Travis talks about making sure we have purpose, authenticity, and focus on collaboration. Lee Rubin's coming on here next week, talks about we have an obligation, even in a crisis like this, to continue to learn, grow, and serve. Brian Price talks about be, know, do, you know, live your values, you know what your relentless pursuit is, and then obviously do, which is just kind of execute violently. That's it. That's his terminology with do. Just 3 things that we can leave here with the folks on the webinar here to walk away with tangibles that, as they deal with today, they deal with tomorrow, and obviously the future, that they can kind of sink their teeth into as kind of standards and pillars to really focus on.
Yeah, I'm going to change my answer a little bit from what I've given you in the past, Chris. I'm going to stick with a little bit about what we discussed today. And the three words, one of them is hyphenated, so there's actually 4 words. The first one's going to be relevance. You know, ask yourself that word relevance from every angle. How is our organization relevant to society? And how am I relevant to my teammates? How are my teammates relevant to me? How's my family relevant to my effectiveness in the world? Ask yourself relevance from every angle. I think you'll find some interesting answers. And then look, where can you make others more relevant? You know, as a leader, at least early on in my leadership career, I felt obligated to be the most important guy in the room all the time. I thought I had to have all the answers. But you know what? Some of my most proud moments as a leader have come of late, where I was the guy in the background, not doing anything, but I know I set the conditions by making others relevant to take care of the job to make our team more effective. So the first word would be relevance. The second one is buy-in. You know, when buy-in is high, there's a reason for it. When buy-in is low, there's a reason for it. Pay attention. Look at it. Why? Ask yourself those hard questions. And don't run away from the truth, because it's in the truth where you're going to find the answers to take your organization to the next level. So the second word, which is hyphenated, would be buy-in. And the third one is care. I've said it multiple times already today. Just care. Care about your people. Care about your clients. Care about our country. Care about your community. I can't say it enough. The more you care and the more you show you care in a meaningful way, the better off you're going to be at the end of the day, and everyone will remember you for that. So the 3, once again, relevance, buy-in, and truly care.
I'm going to just throw this up real quick on the screen, because anybody has any questions for Tom and I'm going to share this real quick before I turn it back to Stephen Rush, you guys can just reach us, give us a shout. You guys are part of our family now. Give us a call. You can hit us up on email or just give us a ring, and just, any questions, you have any concerns, anything pops up over time, just give us a shout. We're here for you to answer any questions you guys might have. And of course, you guys are now, everybody here is part of our family. We take a lot of pride in that. So I'm going to get off this screen here. I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen Rush. Tom, thanks so much. Awesome job as always. And
I'll just say thank you.
over to Stephen Rush here.
All right,
So-
go ahead. Hey guys, thanks a lot. First of all, I really appreciate it. I think Rush, you had a couple of things you want to say?
A couple of questions that have come through email. I don't see any in the Q&A box yet, but we'll get people a little time to think about it. So you started off the session talking about adversity equaling opportunity. And so while that makes perfect sense, I'm wondering, from your time in facing adversity, and you gave some examples today, what are some of the tricks that you found effective to move your mindset from one of adversity to one where you could really focus on the opportunity and be positive?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any tricks, but I know what you're asking there. And the one thing I'll encourage you is to go back to my piece when I was talking about focus on the process. Focus on the process versus the outcome. Because when you focus on the outcome, it's going to cloud everything that's in front of you. When you focus on the outcome, the potential outcomes of adversity, the potential outcomes of COVID-19, when you focus on that, it's going to cloud the opportunity that might be right there in front of your nose. So the trick that I would encourage you to do is just try to stay after those things. Have a routine through this time. That's what I've done. Wake up at the same time. It'd be pretty easy to just sleep in. Hey, I got a 1:30 webinar. Dang, I'm gonna sleep till 10. I have children, so that's a little bit harder for me. But it's easy to get off your routine. Keep it. Keep after it, and focus on that process, and then look at your situation as what could be learned from this time. What can we do differently that would have made a difference? What could we do when we get back that can make a difference and take us to the next level, and make it into the process versus focusing on the outcome?
Okay, thank you. So I just want to remind everybody, you can, right on the screen, input your questions through the Q&A link. I did have a couple of people that emailed, so I'll just continue with those for now until some questions pop up. We have a great resource here, so I would encourage you. Tom's got some great experience that he brings to us, so I would encourage you to take this opportunity to open up and ask questions. A question on perception is everything. So what are some things that a person can do to change their own perception of what's going on? So I guess as it would relate to COVID and all the challenges that we're facing, and most people would perceive that as very negative and very threatening. What could one do to change their own perception and their outlook?
I'm going to keep going back to this. The challenge when you're looking at adversity is people tend to focus on the potential outcomes. When you look at the percentage of people that are dying from COVID-19, as horrible as it is, it's a pretty low percentage. And the majority of those have underlying health issues. And I know some folks that have perished because of COVID-19, and it's horrible and it's sad, but focusing on that isn't going to help me navigate that at all. So how do you change your perception? I personally think it's a matter of being a disciplined thinker versus an undisciplined thinker. And an undisciplined thinker is going to worry about things that are out of their control. You've heard the phrase before, control the controllables. the controllables. What can you control? You can control your remoteness, staying isolated. Okay, that's a good thing to do right now. I'm doing it. My family's doing it. You can control what you do with your time. I'm trying to do that as well. You can control what situations you prepare for as we come out of COVID-19, because it's going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end, and I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. I think even in a place like New Jersey, New York, a month from now, it's going to be a completely different dynamic. So I'd encourage you, control the controllables. Focus on that. You know, in sports, the teams I work with, I try to get the players, don't worry about the competition. Yes, know what their tendencies are. Yes, know where their strengths and weaknesses are. But you can't worry about what they're going to do. You can't worry about the refs making bad calls. You can't worry about the weather. You know, in Michigan, we had a game against Notre Dame last year, and they were predicted to crush us. We knew all week long it was going to be monsoon-like rains. So we as a team decided, it was a choice. We are going to own the weather. So we went into that game and said, we're going to own rain. And we did. And we won the game 45-14 against a team that was much higher ranked than us. And it just had some great victories. And the reason we won that game, I believe, was because we chose to own adversity. So we changed the perception of a situation that, you know, in most cases, we would have let that control us a little more. Instead, we knew we could control it. We controlled our perception of the situation we were about to enter and made it our competitive advantage.
Tom, I'm sorry, Rush, just a question that popped up here. I don't know if you caught it already.
Yep.
About how do you keep your team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles? And I think it's actually a great question. How do we keep our team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles?
Yeah. How do you keep your team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles? You know, for me, it starts with communication. You know, the reason we create teams is to do something greater than we can do alone. And, you know, the more effective you become as a team, the more pressure is going to mount. And, you know, you didn't ask me this, Chris, you normally do. And it's a Billie Jean King quote. And she sent a text to Maria Sharapova before Wimbledon one year. And all she said on the text was, pressure is a privilege. And how do you look at something like that? You know, people look at pressure as this daunting thing. People look at team dynamics sometimes as this daunting thing. But everything you do is really perception. You know, conflict, challenges, pressure. They are what you make them. You know, I can remember back the first time I played competitive sports, just how daunting that was. But you know what? When you think back on it now, when you're older, you're like, how was that such a big deal to me? It's because I perceived it that way. So how do you keep your team motivated? I think you keep them focused on the mark. And the mark is obviously what you're after. But I think the better mark is to focus on the process. If you focus on those steps, those things you need to do collectively, and have micro victories every day. If you do the process 100% over a 12-hour period, that's a huge success. That's a win. You do that in a series of 10 days in a row, that's enormous. Do that 100 days in a row. Now we're talking about, so you do it 1,000 days in a row. Now we're talking about you maybe dominating the market.
I'm going to jump in here for 1 second and piggyback on that, Tom. You know, we talk a lot about chemistry. You know, our teammate Lee Rubin talks a lot about that. He'll get into it next week about how valuable chemistry is. And what really is chemistry? And it's really heat and pressure, right? Forming bonds. So to that question about, you know, how do we lead, you know, through these conflicts and obstacles, I think we have to turn and use the conflicts and obstacles as that chemistry, right? That heat and pressure. It's going to create that bond between us. You know, and Tom, in your community, you talk about it all the time. If there was no adversity, you guys manufacture adversity. How important it is. So I think if we look at the obstacles and these conflicts as something that we can use to our advantage, to create more of a cohesive unit, to create those bonds, to strengthen those relationships. And that chemistry is so vital in building an extraordinary team. And Lee will get into that next week. But, I think obstacles and conflicts can be an awesome thing, because again, it is that chemistry that's going to kind of, bring us together and create that true cohesive unit we want. And Tom, you can jump back in on that. I mean, I feel real strong about that, and spending, 17 years in the sports world building teams. That was one of the biggest things that I felt were the biggest, pillars and why we had so much success was the chemistry, and how we looked at chemistry and conflicts and obstacles, and used that to our advantage to create, again, that cohesive unit.
You said it at the beginning that in the SEAL community, we manufacture adversity, and they do. And we look at adversity from a couple of data points: time limitations, resource limitations, incomplete information, arduous, misery, are four good examples. And they would apply that in different ways, where we just had no idea what we were ever going to get thrown at us. And, over time, you learn to look at all those things that people look at as adversity, as opportunity. You really do. And, here we are. Once again, I'm going to come back. We're in COVID-19, and I'm seeing a long question pop up on the screen. And, this situation is tough for some people, but there's some silver lining in there. There's something. There's somewhere. There's something that could be good. And, perception's everything. It's everything. How you perceive the situation you're in is everything. We hear that phrase, work-life balance. Maybe we're resetting the clock a little bit now. Maybe for some people that don't have the opportunity to go to work because they're waiters in a restaurant that no longer is serving people inside the confines of their building, they're furloughed right now. And that's horrible. And they're losing out. And we want to ensure these people are taken care of. But there's some silver lining. There's some opportunity. And I think one thing that's going to happen is a lot of organizations, sadly, will probably dissolve. And, maybe they were going in that direction anyhow. And this is the impetus for that final resolution of the direction our company will go in. So I'm kind of rambling a little bit now, so I'm going to throw it back to you, Chris, to get me back on track with another question.
Yeah, there's another great question. And Rush, hope you don't mind me jumping on and just reading it out for Tom. It's from Wayne, and Wayne asked, hey, most of our companies have had to furlough, lay off employees. And those of us that remain as employees have lived through a new company culture of a lot of change, asked to do a lot more with a lot less. How do we welcome back those who aren't here right now and get them caught up with the new culture that they have never experienced and don't know? So much has changed in a 6-week period. Will they adapt to the new culture as quickly as we want them to?
Yeah, that's obviously a concern. You're going to have cultural changes. There's going to be process changes. I can guarantee it almost everywhere. I would encourage you, you can't make a teammate work who's furloughed and not getting paid. I would encourage you to communicate with them now. Give them the opportunity to get updates in a voluntary basis. I would do Zoomcast with them. I would say, hey, and I think RSM is doing that today. That's part of what we're doing here, is giving our teammates that maybe can't be with us because of the current situation, giving them the opportunity to stay connected. And that's the key, keeping them connected. And the more connected they could be, whether it's once a week, 3 times a week, like I heard with RSM, that's fantastic. I encourage everybody to do something like that. And, this Zoom platform is pretty easy. It's relatively inexpensive. I'm using it in a way where I don't even have to pay for it now. I'm sure I'm going to get slapped with some big fee later on, and that's fine because it's a great platform. But connect, stay connected, and engage. Encourage your teammates to be part of the team even now they're furloughed, and just make sure they know they're valued, that you care about them. We can't pay you now. We just can't afford it as an organization. That might be the reality of it, but that doesn't mean you can't care about them. you can still care about them. And I bet there's ways you can help those teammates that are furloughed in a way while you keep them connected, while you continue to stay engaged. Because you know what, like I said earlier, they're going to remember what you do. If you ignore them and you don't keep them connected, they'll remember that. If you go out of your way to do whatever you can to keep them connected, and for those teammates that are struggling, maybe with food, you have a can drive, let me know. I'll donate a couple cans. I'm sure everybody from your organization that has the financial ability would help out. Look to do things like that, and these teammates will remember forever what you did.
Thank you very much, both Tom and Chris. I think this has been a great session. You guys have brought together some great points. And as Steve mentioned when we started, this is all about all of us in this community getting through together. The community made up of not only those from RSM, but our clients, our colleagues, our partners. We're all struggling differently, but we're all supporting each other. And together we will get through this and come out the other side better for it. So I think this session definitely contributed to that and will help us all cope better in the future. And that's what these sessions are all about. We're doing them Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1:30. We'll continue to do this as the impacts from the pandemic continue. The goal is to share best practices and support each other and help each other as we continue to deal with the impacts. And so next Friday, as Chris referenced, we're going to do the second part of this series. Speaker Lee Rubin, who is a nationally renowned speaker and captain of Penn State football, is going to share some insights with us titled "When There Is No Trust, There Is No Team." So we will get registration to everybody that's on this call. We will get registration out to you, and we hope you can join us again. If anything comes up after this call, other thoughts, ideas you might have, or anything you want to share, feel free to share it with us via email or give us a call. We're always happy to engage with you and keep the conversation going. So with that, we'll end the session. Wish everybody a great Friday. Hope you have a nice weekend, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks again, Tom and Chris.
Chris, thank you, everybody who joined us. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.